Hadley Foster, dismissed as just another temp in her plain navy dress, stands frozen outside the boardroom as laughter erupts behind the glass. When the doors open, whose reputation will be shattered, and whose authority will reshape the entire firm? Hadley Foster, 29, arrived for her first day at the prestigious consultancy, the glass walls reflecting the crisp morning light. A brisk walk from the subway had left her slightly flushed, a few strands of brunette hair escaping the confines of her loose ponytail. Her navy shift dress and sensible flats were practical, understated choices, a stark contrast to the sharply tailored suits and power dresses sported by the staff hurrying through the marble-floored lobby. She stood awkwardly behind the pristine white reception desk, scanning the office directory, the hum of printers and the rhythmic click of expensive heels creating a sterile symphony around her. Employees breezed past, their gazes sliding over her without a flicker of recognition. Two assistants at a nearby desk, impeccably dressed in designer blouses and pencil skirts, exchanged knowing smirks, their whispers laced with amusement as they assessed Hadley's simple attire and nervous posture. Ross Whitmore, the department head, a man radiating confidence with his expensive watch and crisply ironed shirt, mistook Hadley for the temporary receptionist. He barked a rushed order at her, demanding she fetch coffee for the executive briefing upstairs. And try to at least get the names right this time, Ross added with a dry chuckle, glancing at the two assistants. They erupted in laughter, making Hadley's cheeks burn with a sudden, unwelcome heat. Hadley offered a polite, neutral, "Of course, I'll take care of it," her cheeks burning. She gripped the coffee list, the names blurring slightly before her eyes. She didn't move toward the elevators, though. Instead, she pivoted, heading in the opposite direction, down a quiet hallway lined with framed prints of cityscapes. She bypassed the bustling main office, the click-clack of keyboards and ringing phones a distant hum, and aimed directly for HR. Ms. Patel stood waiting just outside her office, a welcoming smile gracing her features. The smile eased some of the tension knotted in Hadley's shoulders. "Hadley. Welcome. We're so glad to finally have you here." She ushered Hadley into a bright, glass-walled office overlooking the city. The panoramic view, usually a source of anxiety for those with a fear of heights, grounded Hadley. The miniature cars crawling along the streets below, the distant, almost silent bustle, were a comforting reminder of the world continuing on, regardless of the minor dramas unfolding within this gleaming tower. "Congratulations on your appointment as managing director," Ms. Patel continued, her voice warm and genuine. "We know you're going to do great things here." Hadley managed a small smile in return. "Thank you, Ms. Patel. I'm eager to get started." Ms. Patel gestured towards a sleek, modern chair. "Please, have a seat. Let's go over your schedule for today. We have your official introduction to the executive team scheduled for this morning, followed by a quick tour of the office. We want to make sure you're settled in and comfortable." As Ms. Patel detailed the morning's agenda, Hadley listened attentively, her initial nerves gradually subsiding. The HR manager's calm demeanor and clear explanations were reassuring. Hadley appreciated the organized approach and the emphasis on making her feel welcome. The earlier awkwardness, the sting of Ross's comment, felt distant, almost like a bad dream. This felt real. This felt right. Meanwhile, back at his desk, Ross was holding court, loudly recounting his encounter with a new girl, to the amusement of his two assistants, Fiona and Sloane. "Honestly, she looked completely lost," he chuckled, leaning back in his chair. "I swear, she was staring at the directory like it was written in hieroglyphics. I wouldn't be surprised if she gets the coffee order completely wrong. Decaf for everyone, maybe?" Fiona and Sloane giggled, their eyes sparkling with malicious glee. "Oh, that would be priceless," Fiona chirped, adjusting her designer glasses. "She probably doesn't even know the difference between a latte and a cappuccino," Sloane added, twirling a strand of her perfectly coiffed blonde hair. Ross reveled in their attention, his arrogance on full display. He embellished the story, exaggerating Hadley's apparent confusion and lack of confidence. I had to practically spell out the names for her, he boomed, mimicking a slow, deliberate enunciation. And the way she was dressed. A navy sack dress? Honestly, it looked like something my grandmother would wear. The assistants shrieked with laughter, their amusement fueling Ross's ego. He basked in the glow of their admiration, completely oblivious to the fact that the subject of his ridicule was, at that very moment, being briefed on her role as his superior. He continued to spin his yarn, adding more and more outlandish details, each one designed to further solidify his own perceived superiority. He was on a roll, a master of his domain, completely unaware of the impending shift in power. He smirked, picturing the hapless, new girl struggling with the complicated coffee order, a small, insignificant cog in the well-oiled machine that was Whitmore Consulting. The thought pleased him immensely. He was important. He was in control. He was, in his own mind, untouchable. The universe, however, had other plans. Minutes later, the executive team gathered in the sleek 7th-floor boardroom for the scheduled morning briefing, the atmosphere lively and full of anticipation for the day's agenda. Sunlight streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows, illuminating the polished mahogany table and the expectant faces of the assembled executives. Coffee cups steamed, and the air buzzed with the quiet murmur of pre-meeting chatter. Ross entered with a flourish, still smirking, his expensive watch glinting under the light. He surveyed the room with a self-satisfied grin, clearly enjoying the attention. He launched into another retelling of the coffee run to the group, exaggerating Hadley's supposed confusion and incompetence. "You should have seen her," he chuckled, wandering around like she'd never seen an office building before. "I swear, I thought she was going to ask me where the coffee beans came from." Several colleagues joined in the laughter, their eyes crinkling with amusement. Even seasoned executives like Eleanor Vance, the CFO, and David Chin, the head of marketing, couldn't help but crack a smile at Ross's animated performance. The room's collective mood was light, jovial, and utterly oblivious to the impending shift in power. As Hadley approached the boardroom with Ms. Patel, a stern security guard, a burly man named Jerry with a permanent frown etched on his face, blocked her path. He crossed his arms, his posture radiating authority. "Sorry, miss," he said, his voice gruff and dismissive. "Staff like you need to use the side entrance. Deliveries aren't allowed through here." Hadley, momentarily taken aback by his brusque tone, attempted to explain. "I'm not a delivery person," she began, but Jerry cut her off. "Doesn't matter. Rules are rules. Side entrance, around the corner." He gestured dismissively with his head, his eyes fixed on some point beyond her. Ms. Patel, her expression hardening, stepped forward. "Excuse me," she said, her voice sharp and authoritative. "This woman is with me, and she needs to enter this boardroom immediately." Jerry remained unmoved. "I have my orders, Ms. Patel. No unauthorized personnel." Inside, Ross's voice carried clearly through the closed doors. He was still mocking the new girl, his words laced with condescension. "I bet she's still trying to figure out the difference between a latte and a cappuccino," he guffawed, prompting another wave of laughter from the room. The laughter reached a peak just as Ms. Patel firmly intervened, her voice rising slightly in frustration. "I insist," she said, her eyes blazing with indignation. "This is completely unacceptable. Either you let us through, or I'm calling Mr. Thompson myself." Mr. Thompson was the CEO. Jerry hesitated, his face contorted in a mixture of defiance and apprehension. He clearly didn't want to cross Ms. Patel, but he also didn't want to disobey what he perceived as his orders. Finally, with a reluctant sigh, he stepped aside, muttering under his breath about people not knowing their place. The boardroom quieted instantly as Ms. Patel, her back straight and her chin held high, led Hadley into the room. All eyes turned toward the entrance, the shift in atmosphere palpable. The laughter died in the air, replaced by a stunned silence. Ross's smirk wavered, then vanished completely, his face paling slightly as he registered the presence of Ms. Patel and the unfamiliar woman beside her. Miss Patel led Hadley to the head of the table, the seat usually occupied by the chairman. The CEO, Mr. Thompson, a tall, silver-haired man with a warm smile, rose from his chair, followed by the chairman, Mr. Davies, a more reserved figure known for his sharp intellect. Mr. Thompson extended his hand to Hadley, his grip firm and welcoming. "Good morning," he said, his voice resonating with authority. "Welcome to the team. It's a pleasure to finally meet you, Hadley." He turned to the assembled executives, his gaze sweeping across the room. "Everyone," he announced, his voice clear and decisive, "I'd like to introduce you to our newly appointed managing director, Hadley Foster." Stunned silence fell over the room. The only sound was the faint hum of the ventilation system and the frantic beating of Ross's heart. He stared, speechless, his mouth slightly agape, as Hadley stood at the front of the room, her presence now commanding the attention of the entire group. The coffee list he had so carelessly thrust upon her lay forgotten on his desk. He felt a cold dread creeping into his stomach, a sickening realization that he had made a colossal, career-defining mistake. Hadley met his gaze briefly, her expression unreadable, before turning her attention back to the CEO. The power in the room had shifted, the dynamics irrevocably altered. The air crackled with unspoken tension, the weight of expectation pressing down on everyone present. He was in control. He was, in his own mind, untouchable. The universe, however, had other plans. Hadley remained poised, offering a calm smile as the CEO, a tall, silver-haired man named Warren, briefly outlined her impressive credentials. He detailed her leadership of a successful turnaround of a struggling European branch, her launch of award-winning client initiatives, and her reputation for people-first management. Warren emphasized her dedication to creating collaborative environments where every voice was valued. The atmosphere in the room shifted abruptly. Amusement evaporated, replaced by a palpable tension and a dawning respect. Employees who had been snickering moments ago now observed Hadley with a newfound deference, their eyes widened with disbelief and perhaps a touch of regret. The air crackled with unspoken questions. Warren continued, Hadley's backstory unfolding in his concise remarks. She had, he explained, built her career from the ground up, starting as an analyst fresh out of university. She was a champion of diversity and innovation, known for her willingness to roll up her sleeves and connect with teams at every level. He mentioned her work mentoring young professionals from underprivileged backgrounds, her commitment to sustainable business practices, and her passion for fostering a culture of inclusivity. When Warren finished, he turned to Hadley with a genuine smile. "Hadley, the floor is yours." Hadley stepped forward slightly, her gaze sweeping across the room, meeting each pair of eyes with a steady, reassuring warmth. She began to speak, her voice calm and clear, filling the silence with a quiet authority. "Thank you, Warren," she said, her tone gentle but firm. "And thank you all for the warm, if somewhat unexpected, welcome." A ripple of nervous laughter spread through the room. She paused, allowing the tension to dissipate slightly. "I chose to dress simply and arrive early this morning," she continued, "because I wanted to observe the office dynamic firsthand. I believe in humility and authenticity, especially on a first day." She acknowledged the coffee mix-up with a disarming smile. "And yes, I was indeed sent on a coffee run," she said, her eyes twinkling. "It was a valuable learning experience. It highlighted the importance of not making assumptions and treating everyone with respect, regardless of their perceived role." She let her words sink in, her gaze lingering on Ross for a fleeting moment before moving on. His face was a mask of mortification, his earlier arrogance completely deflated. "But more importantly," Hadley continued, her voice gaining strength, "it reminded me why I accepted this position. I believe in the power of collaboration, the value of diverse perspectives, and the importance of creating a workplace where everyone feels empowered to contribute their best work. She paused again, drawing a deep breath. My vision for this firm is simple: a culture of mutual support, transparency, and high standards. A place where we challenge each other to grow, celebrate each other's successes, and learn from our mistakes. I know that change can be difficult, she acknowledged, but I believe that by working together, we can create something truly special here. I invite each and every one of you to join me in setting a new tone for this firm, a tone of respect, collaboration, and excellence. She concluded her remarks with a confident smile, her eyes shining with passion and determination. I'm eager to get to know each of you, to hear your ideas, and to work alongside you to achieve our shared goals. Thank you. The room erupted in applause, the sound echoing through the boardroom. The shift in atmosphere was palpable. The initial shock and awkwardness had been replaced by a sense of excitement and anticipation. People were genuinely intrigued by Hadley's vision and eager to see what she would do. Even those who had initially dismissed her were now captivated by her presence and her message. They recognized that she was not just another executive, she was a leader who genuinely cared about people and was committed to creating a positive and productive work environment. As the applause subsided, Warren stepped forward again. "Thank you, Hadley," he said, his voice filled with genuine admiration. "That was exactly what we needed to hear." He then turned to the rest of the room. "Now, let's get down to business. But before we do, I think it's important that we address a certain incident that occurred earlier this morning." He glanced pointedly at Ross, who visibly paled. He was in control. He was, in his own mind, untouchable. The universe, however, had other plans. In the aftermath, Ross was summoned by HR and the CEO for a private discussion. The frosted glass of the CEO's office offered no glimpse into the dressing down that ensued, but the muffled rise and fall of voices hinted at the severity of the situation. The HR manager, Ms. Patel, known for her calm demeanor, looked particularly grave as she ushered Ross inside. The door closed with a soft click, sealing Ross's fate, at least for the foreseeable future. Within the executive suite, the atmosphere underwent a seismic shift. The snickers and whispered judgments from earlier that morning were replaced by hushed tones of respect, even awe. Staff who had breezed past Hadley without a second glance now found reasons to linger near her temporary workspace, their eyes darting between her and the closed door of the CEO's office. A few brave souls approached, their initial awkwardness giving way to genuine curiosity and a desire to make amends. "Miss Foster," began Arya Sterling, one of the executive assistants who had previously shared a laugh at Hadley's expense. "I just wanted to say, welcome. We're all really excited to have you here." Her voice was sincere, a stark contrast to the dismissive tone from earlier. Hadley smiled warmly, extending her hand. "Thank you, Arya. I appreciate that. Please, call me Hadley." The gesture seemed to ease Arya's discomfort. "Is there anything I can do to help you get settled?" she offered, her eagerness almost palpable. "I know the office can be a bit overwhelming at first." "Actually," Hadley replied, her eyes twinkling, "I could use some help finding the best coffee in the building. I hear the executive blend is quite something." Arya's face lit up. "Oh, I know just the place. Follow me." As they walked toward the executive lounge, Arya chattered about the office layout and the various coffee options, her earlier arrogance completely gone. Hadley stepped into her new office. The space, previously occupied by a retiring executive, was spacious and bathed in natural light, offering panoramic views of the city skyline. A large mahogany desk dominated the room, its surface gleaming under the soft glow of recessed lighting. Awaiting her was a personalized welcome basket filled with local delicacies, a handwritten note from the CEO, and an array of high-tech gadgets. The room felt both powerful and inviting, a reflection of the leadership style she intended to embody. Her authority was unquestioned as colleagues greeted her warmly, seeking her input on existing projects and upcoming initiatives. The atmosphere was collaborative and optimistic, a far cry from the competitive tension she had sensed earlier that morning. The staff seemed genuinely eager to embrace her vision and contribute to a more positive and inclusive work environment. Meanwhile, back in the CEO's office, Ross's world was crumbling. The reprimand was swift and merciless. He was informed that his disrespectful behavior was unacceptable and a direct violation of the company's code of conduct. He was immediately removed from key client accounts, his projects reassigned to other department heads. As the final blow, he was ordered to attend mandatory leadership training, a humiliating experience for someone who had always prided himself on his superior management skills. The weight of his misjudgment settled upon him, crushing his ego and leaving him reeling. He had underestimated Hadley, assuming her unassuming appearance and quiet demeanor were signs of weakness. He had allowed his arrogance to cloud his judgment, blinding him to the true potential of the person standing before him. Ross, visibly chastened, encountered Hadley in the corridor. He was a shadow of his former self, his confident swagger replaced by a hesitant shuffle. He averted his gaze, shame burning in his cheeks. Hadley paused, meeting his eyes with a brief, civil nod. There was no malice in her expression, only a quiet acknowledgement of his presence. She moved past him without rancor, signaling both closure and her unwavering professionalism. The final image, Hadley strides through the gleaming office, shoulders squared and head high. Her presence now commanded respect, her every move exuding confidence and authority. The office dynamic had shifted, the power balance realigned. Hadley Foster, once dismissed as just another temp, was now the center of gravity, the guiding force behind a new era of collaboration, innovation, and mutual respect. She was confident, respected, and fully in command of her new domain. She knew the challenges ahead would be many, but she was ready to face them head-on, armed with her vision, her experience, and her unwavering belief in the power of human connection. The future of the firm, it seemed, was in very capable hands.